Welcome to Real Estate IQ Wisdom for Smart Moves. We will explore the insider secrets tailored exclusively for Silicon Valley home buyers, sellers, and investors, arming you to conquer the unique real estate landscape. So, without further ado, let's dive into this exciting conversation. Today, we welcome Matthew Angel, the CEO of Angel Law Firm. He practices real estate law, business litigation, civil litigation, and probate litigation. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Across Silicon Valley, a glaring knowledge gap persists. A staggering 87% of first-time homebuyers admit they're stepping into the property world blind, unaware of the legal pitfalls and processes. Meanwhile, property disputes are soaring by 15% last year alone. And with over 60% of us without an up-to-date will, the probate maze only thickens. It's a treacherous terrain, but today, we're here to navigate these challenges. Stay tuned as we unravel real estate's most pressing legal issues and forge a path to clarity. The following content is only for informational purposes. Please consult a licensed consultant for your specific situation, or if you need any specific legal or tax advice.
Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sharad. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to get to speak to your viewers.
Why did you decide to do real estate law?
I've always really enjoyed real estate law. I've always enjoyed, even from when I was in high school, I would like to go to open houses. I worked as a gopher on a construction site so that I was able to see how the houses were built. I was fascinated to see how it started from just raw dirt and turned into somebody's dream home. I always really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed seeing the whole process of from building a house to selling it to people moving in. And I always looked at it as I was helping build somebody's dream home. When I went to law school, I immediately gravitated towards the real property classes. I really enjoyed the specifics of how to hold title. I mean, all this stuff is extremely nerdy, but I really enjoyed every aspect of learning about law and how it touches real estate.
Talk to us about your internships.
Well, during law school, I went to University of Pacific up in Sacramento, and so I had the benefit of being in Sacramento. I was able to intern at a lot of different California state agencies, and I found myself drawn to believe it or not, the Department of Toxic Substances Control, as pollution of real estate and cleaning it up. And I was really drawn to improving real estate, improving and fixing the environment. So one of the benefits of going to law school in Sacramento is I was able to intern at some state agencies with some very smart people who were able to teach me a lot. I took that knowledge from learning, during my internships in law school, and I took it to my practice. I moved back to the Bay Area and then was able to start working for a firm that did some environmental law. And we did a lot with, gas station cleanups or in shopping centers with dry cleaners. Dry cleaners in the 1960s and 1970s didn't really adhere to the standards of keeping the environment clean, right, as they do nowadays. And from my experience in dealing with some of the larger commercial real estate owners, it led me down to the individuals and the individual homeowners. Rather than helping just a large corporation, I really wanted to help individual people. And that led me to form the Angel Law Firm and actually to focus on individual people, individual needs, and helping families in their real estate needs.
How do you handle undisclosed property defects?
Undisclosed property defects are very disruptive to the buyer and to the seller. Your very first call, if you are a buyer, if you perceive that there is a defect that was not disclosed to you, is you reach out to your agent. By reaching out to your agent, it allows to have a more friendly conversation and to figure out what really happened, what was disclosed, what wasn't disclosed, and to try to reach a mutually beneficial understanding.
Right.
The agents will work together collaboratively to try to fix the problem. However, if the agents aren't able to fix the problem, then it is a good idea to contact legal counsel. Legal counsel will listen to you, figure out what the problem is, decide, help you decide if it's worth pursuing, worth the cost of hiring an attorney. If it is worth the cost, then what we would do is we'd send a demand letter. If you're a buyer, we'd send a demand letter to the seller, and we'd explain what the defect is, why we think that it was not properly disclosed or disclosed at all, and to propose a remedy to fix the situation. And 90% of the contracts in the state of California, the California Association of Realtors has what's we call a mandatory mediation provision.
I see.
So prior to any litigation, prior to going to court and incurring all those fees, there is an informal process to try to reach a resolution on these failure to disclose types of issues. And in my practice, I would estimate that 75% of all cases get resolved prior to filing litigation, which benefits both the buyer and the seller.
Should the buyers reach out to sellers directly to resolve these issues?
Buyers may want to have the initial urge to reach out to a seller, but I would urge them to talk to their agent first. Speaking to the agent is a professional. The agent does these transactions all the time, and I get worried that the buyers may be a little emotional and maybe say something that they would not want to convey that may not lead to a resolution. The goal here is always to reach a resolution.
Right.
It's not to prove somebody was right or to prove somebody was wrong. It is to resolve the issue so that the new homeowner can enjoy their new home.
A typical problem homeowners have when wanting to buy a new home is whether to sell first or buy first. Either way is risky. When ready to look for a new home, TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, offers an upfront guaranteed cash offer on your current home. Are you moving in the next 3 to 6 months? Text PAIR to 408-740-7400 for a free and no obligation professional equity appraisal report. For more information, visit TradeMyHome.com or call 408-740-7400. Remember, at TradeMyHome.com, your home is sold guaranteed or we'll buy it. For the next episode of Real Estate IQ, featuring Scott Varney from SV Consultants.
So in 1996, I got my real estate license in Texas. I fairly quickly got up into the 0.2%.
He has been a seasoned expert in bridging real estate and capital gains tax strategies for many years.
Cranking it out 50, 60 closes a year. And then in 2008, I moved here.
Check out our full episode on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific and 8 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and Apple Podcast.
Give us some tips for homeowners who are dealing with property liens.
The very first tip for if you're dealing with a property lien is don't ignore it. Liens will stay on your property. They will stay in your chain of title. It is best to deal with the lien issue immediately. There are several types of liens, whether it would be an HOA lien or a mechanic's lien, or it's a lender's lien. These all have to be dealt with slightly differently. HOA liens you have to deal with immediately because HOAs have the power to sell your property. A mechanic's lien, there are some very strict rules about when the creditor can actually go after you and your house. So there's some very strict rules about how quickly a creditor must go after your house. It is very important that you open a dialogue immediately and see if you can reach a resolution. As to a lender lien, That's what everyone would consider a mortgage. Those type of issues, they can be dealt with a little bit more slowly, but liens do not get better. California has a mandatory interest rate. California has a suggested interest rate of 10% per year.
Wow.
And at 10% per year on real estate in California, that adds up pretty quickly. So my best advice is deal with the issue as soon as possible.
What are some strategies for managing HOA conflicts?
HOAs are very common in the Bay Area. HOAs tend to improve a property value. They tend to make sure that people have uniform cleanliness, it establishes the character of a neighborhood.
Right.
However, HOA issues, they happen because of misunderstanding, not understanding what an HOA's job is, what duties they're supposed to do, what the HOA is, what the homeowner is supposed to do, what the HOA is supposed to do. So the very first bit of advice is actually read your HOA documents. You would be surprised. Many people do not actually read the documents. If you read the documents and you can see what the HOA is asking from you, and you see that if you're required to respond to the HOA, or in what manner you're required to respond. Also, if there is a dispute with the HOA, a lot of these can be resolved with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of kindness. There tends to be a lot of emotion when people perceive that their home is under attack, or there's a lot of emotion if people perceive that they can't do something in their house that they believe that they could do. So when you purchase a home in an HOA, it is best to read the HOA documents and understand what the obligations of the HOA are and what your obligations to the HOA are in the neighborhood.
What are CCRs?
CCRs are covenants and restrictions that come with various properties. Some properties will have several CCNRs, other properties will not have any CCNRs. It is very important prior to buying a home to understand what the restrictions are. For example, in my real property class in law school, we were talking about CCNRs, and the professor threw out the hypothetical, what if somebody really loved the San Francisco 49ers and they wanted to turn their house, the facade of the house, into a 49ers helmet?
Right.
And whether or not that would be allowed. In order to answer the question of whether or not that 49er helmet house would be allowed, you would have to look at the CCNRs and see what restrictions are there, what you can do with your property.
What are some considerations for holding a property title?
One of the main considerations for how you hold title to the property is how much control you want to have. Now, you may think that you own it and you have complete control, but that is not the case if you hold title in a different manner. For example, if you are buying a rental property, you may want to form a limited liability company and hold the title in the LLC's name for either tax reasons or liability reasons. If you're an unmarried couple and you're buying a house together, you want to make sure you title it so that each of you have equal ownership. I see a lot of people in my practice where only one person is on title, but another person thinks that they own the house. The issue is that if you own the house, or if you're putting money down, you probably want to check the title to make sure that you're on it. Now, unmarried couples that subsequently get married, they may want to check the title, and they may want to change the title after they get married. It's important to know because typically at a closing, they will ask you, how do you want to hold title? And it's very important for you to talk to your real estate agent about the pros and cons of how you hold title. Many times, when I bought my first house, it was almost like a throwaway question. How do you want to hold title? It is a subject where you should consult a professional, whether it be your real estate agent or your CPA or your attorney,
Right.
because it has a lot of bearing on what happens if there is a dispute or if you want to sell the property or how you want to use the property.
Sure.
So pay close attention to how you hold title.
What is a community property?
California is one of the few states in the nation that is a community property state. Community property basically means that any property acquired during the course of a marriage is presumed to be owned by both of the married couples equally. The issue is when property title for, in the case of a divorce or in the case of somebody passing away, the way you hold title, whether it's a community property or not, is very important to see how the property is distributed after you either sell the property or if you pass away.
Thank you, Matt, for being part of our show today. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharad, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure. Love to do it again.
Thank you for listening to the podcast and acknowledging the wisdom of smart moves in real estate in Silicon Valley. Please share this episode with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts at Real Estate IQ. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their client commitment and for making this podcast possible. If you're considering buying or selling a home, visit TradeMyHome.com. Until next time, remember to stay ahead in the real estate game.